Yo, welcome to Ed Media. Currently, Ed Media isn't here right now, but not to worry as I will be taking over. I am Ed Media and I will be the host of the video today. Anyways, today we're going to talk about Shadow Generations, and more specifically, how Shadow Generations redeemed the character known as Shadow the Hedgehog. We will be talking about his past, which is before the game's release, the present, when the game released, and the future, how Shadow will be handled after the game's release. Well, technically it can't be the present or the future since the game literally released a year ago today, but shut up, it doesn't matter. So let's go ahead.
Shadow the Hedgehog. This is the destiny I choose. Now, to end this!
Okay, so how was Shadow before Shadow Generations? Well, before Shadow Generations, his last game appearance would be Team Sonic Racing. Well, let's just say this might be one of the worst characterizations he's ever had in a game ever. He was just a jerk and was grumpy, which is far from what Shadow is. Well, let's look at the game before that, which was Sonic Forces. Well, honestly, Shadow was honestly such a nothing burger in Forces. He was barely in the story, and when he was, he didn't really act like himself. I mean, at least he didn't act like an edgelord, but he was barely anything too. Well, what about his episode in the game? That's when he's an edgelord. In the beginning, sure, he's still focused on the mission, but he still has his edgy remarks. And sure, sometimes he can be good, like the in-stage dialogue with Rouge and Omega, but then you have him being overly edgy and just trying so hard to act tough. Like, dude, who are you trying to impress? So yeah, Shadow's previous games are honestly trash, and I'm not even gonna look at Boom or Free Riders because his writing in there is so dogshit I can actually smell it. But to summarize, Shadow has been reduced to such a try-hard on being edgy and just grumpy in general. Just like Ed Media. I mean, sure, he has his edgy moments before this, but it's too try-hard in these games. He doesn't feel like himself, where he was actually a really cool and interesting character. He went from a peak character and was reduced to the trash that honestly reflected what was so bad in this era of Sonic. So yeah, that's Shadow's past as opposed to Shadow Generations. So what changed?
Shadow the Hedgehog. This is the destiny I choose. Now, to end this!
Before we talk about Shadow Generations, we need to cover the prologue anime. But before we cover that, we need to talk about the state Sonic was in during this time. So, it's currently the Renaissance. Sonic Team is fixing up not just gameplay, but also the writing. They finally listened to the fans after prioritizing an audience that wouldn't like them no matter how much they listened to them, and have been fixing up the Sonic characters. They fixed Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy. Well, honestly, that's subjective. Maybe that's for another video. To summarize, they're more confident now in cleaning up the mess during the 2010s. And with the movie containing Shadow's live-action debut, it was time for Shadow to be cleaned up. By far one of the most damaged characters in the 2010s, a lot needed to be done for Shadow to be cleaned up. Shadow's damage to his character was actually insanely monumental that I guess even Sonic Team didn't know where to start with the damage fix. Do they bring Shadow back to his characterization in 06? Do they try to evolve his character in a different direction? Well, sometimes when things get too dire, you kinda need to just start all over, so that's what they did. The first thing to fix Shadow was to establish his backstory once again. The 2010s kinda brushed it off to the side, so I guess it was fine to establish it once again. And that's where Shadow Generations comes in. Designed to celebrate Shadow's history, this would include his backstory. Now, since this was Shadow's big comeback, a great story was necessary, and every great story always has a prologue. That's where the prologue anime comes in. Well, actually, I don't know if every great story has a prologue. I just said that to make a smooth as hell transition to the anime. You know what, whatever, let's move on. In order to set up the story of Shadow Generations, we had this 3-part animation meant to set up the events of the game. And I gotta say, this has to be one of my favorite Sonic medias ever. We get flashbacks to Shadow and Maria, and we get some really cool information that I don't think we ever got before, at least not that I'm aware of. Shadow actually had a lot of trouble trying to find himself during his time with Maria. We see him be insecure, think little of himself, have internal issues, and we always see Maria have his back. No wonder he loves her so much. We actually get to see their friendship here. Maria so full of love and spreading that to Shadow is so sweet to see. During the reminiscence of these moments, it turns out that this is a dream gone wrong as we see terrible visions of Shadow's tragic past. Like seeing Gerald insane, a vision of Maria, and finally Black Doom. This makes Shadow believe Black Doom is back, and due to this happening when Shadow spotted the Ark, he believes they could have a connection, so he goes off to investigate. As Shadow sets off to an Eggman base for a shift, he stumbles into Rouge and Omega. At first I was afraid this could be characterization gone wrong because of previous iterations making Shadow not thinking Rouge and Omega as all eyes or even friends. So I was afraid Shadow would treat these guys so horribly. Luckily that wasn't the case. Rouge is happy to see Shadow, and Shadow trusts Rouge and tells her his goals. Just then, a robot tries striking Rouge, but Shadow saves her. I was actually glad by this small gesture because during the 2010s, Shadow didn't give a shit about Rouge and Omega. Literally in the team racing animation, Shadow just ignored Rouge when she needed help. So seeing this actually meant a lot. Shadow actually does give a shit. Then the three defeat a robot and Rouge offers a ship, but she makes Shadow promise to come to Sonic's birthday party. Which just shows the bond these two have. Rouge has sass and stuff, so she usually teases her friends, which is shown here since she knows Sonic gives Shadow a hard time. Rouge then takes Shadow to the gun base and she talks a bit about Shadow's backstory and warns him not to get too angry when raiding the base. Shadow then admits he has no grudge against Gun and just sees them as an obstacle on getting the ship. We get some cool as hell action with him and Omega. And it's fun to see Omega's desire for destruction bounce off Shadow's edge. As Shadow prepares for launch, the base recognizes that the launch was unauthorized and begins to target Shadow. As Rouge has Shadow's back and tells Omega to take out the weapons, Commander Abraham, who was seen in a flashback, turns off the target on Shadow. Rouge and Shadow have a great convo about Shadow and both come to an understanding that Shadow is just doing what's right but should have asked for help, but the only person who could convince him to do that is Maria. As Shadow approaches the Ark, we see Shadow wondering how life would be with Maria if she was still around and went to Earth, and we get the peak song Without You in the background that really conveys Shadow's feelings towards losing Maria. I highly recommend giving it a listen, it's so peak. As Shadow continues wondering, it causes him to get too into it and he realizes he must continue the mission and accept she's gone. I probably did a bad job explaining it, but this animation was so good. If you haven't watched it, I'm sorry for spoiling it, but do give it a watch, it's a must. Now, how does this introduce the fixed Shadow before Shadow Generations? Well, Shadow still has an edge, but it's not try hard like before. They throw away his shitty attitude towards friends and he actually views Rouge and Omega as people he can ask for help. And it's also really cool to see him still wonder about Maria. It's kind of a side we haven't seen of him since Shadow the Hedgehog. It's good to see she's still in his heart, but he's accepted that she's gone. But we have never seen him get too into the moment and wonder how life would be if she's still alive. It was actually really sad to see. So, we actually get to see some human emotion in Shadow, something the 2010 era neglected. This Shadow is a huge improvement. This prologue introduces the fixed Shadow we will see in Shadow Generations, where we see his emotions slip out, and this foreshadows how his emotions will be tested in the game. And that leads us to dive into the actual game. In the beginning of the game, Shadow is now in the Ark, and there is a writing inconsistency about Gun alerting him that there's a threat in the Ark, so honestly I don't know how to feel about that, but I'm just gonna try to assume that the gun ship he was in alerted the threat in the Ark, so let's try not to think about it too much. The beginning of the game doesn't do too much, but it does show he's not trying too hard to be an edgelord. He's calm, collected, and is focused on the mission. He and Rupias are able to have a cool conversation and shows that these two are friends. As he continues on the Ark, he stumbles onto the fake Chaos Emerald Tails made in Adventure 2, which is the exact moment the Time Eater is unleashed and eats the timeline. Since Shadow was not present in Sonic's birthday party, the Time Eater did not suck him into one of its portals and he ends up in his own white space. He finds Omega and goes back to the space colony to restore it. As he restores it, he does activate Doom Wing and begins to analyze how he has never been able to do that before, yet it felt natural. As he continues to analyze white space, he sees Maria and Gerald in the distance. But since he accepted she's gone in the prologue, he assures himself that she's gone and that he's just hallucinating. He continues through the white space and restores Rail Canyon and defeats the Biolizard. He encounters Black Doom for the second time. The both bicker with each other as Shadow assures that he's defeated him before and will do it again. Shadow continues to restore the timeline until he sees some of the Doom soldiers chasing an innocent civilian. This angers Shadow and he goes to save the civilian. This shows Shadow does indeed have a big heart and does not enjoy seeing someone in danger. He defeats the soldiers and looks towards the civilian to see if they're okay. Turns out that civilian is Maria. At first he doesn't recognize her, but he is surprised to see her here. As she hugs him, he's more confused than anything. When he sees Gerald as well, he realizes they're from before the gun raid on the Ark, and he decides that maybe he can save them. This shows that Shadow still has them in his heart and wants them to still remain with him. Of course, he's accepted that they're gone, but now that they're right here in front of his face, he can't help but want them back. And who wouldn't? That's literally his family. So he tells them to go hide somewhere safe while he'll take care of the situation. When he defeats Metal Overlord, he continues hanging out with Maria and Gerald. Maria notices his powers, and wonders if they are hurting Shadow. This strikes the conversation that Shadow's powers are connected to the Doom Eye in the sky, and that since Black Doom and Shadow are related, the growth in power in Shadow causes Black Doom to grow in power and that Shadow will be used by Black Doom. Shadow assures that he will use this power to defeat Black Doom. As we continue, Shadow and Sonic do interact with each other. And honestly, it was one of the best cutscenes in the game. We see both of them have a friendly fight for the Chaos Emerald, but Shadow humbly takes defeat in order to get Sonic away. He used the fake Chaos Emerald he found so that Sonic could take it. He used the actual emerald he had to continue his mission. Shadow and Rouge also find each other and Rouge kinda scolds him because she believes Sonic took the actual emerald, but when Shadow reveals he gave Sonic the fake emerald and trusts Rouge to swap it out for the real one when he's done, she's very impressed. With the timer now on set, Shadow is finishing up his mission. As he continues hanging out with Maria, Black Doom soon intervened and informs Shadow that the plan is commencing soon and that Shadow will soon submit to him. Maria defends Shadow and ensures that Shadow will not fall into evil. Black Doom continues and says Shadow is destined to be a warrior of destruction. Then Shadow clocks him with his hard-ass line. And as Black Doom leaves insisting he won't make any mistakes as he has learned from their previous fight, Shadow gives into his anger and vows that he will destroy every single Black Arms soldier along with Black Doom. Shadow's anger has really been a problem with the 2010 era. He's been grumpy, rude, and it's all due to his anger. Though here, it's completely justified, we also see it finally get addressed. Since Shadow is so angry, Maria begins to calm him down. Seeing Shadow this angry as opposed to just nervous and reserved worried her, and she begins to tell Shadow how he got his name. She advises him to have leave in his heart because he is a light to her world. As Shadow clams down, he runs away, probably ashamed that he made Maria upset. As he gets his last power up, so does Black Doom, and it is time for them to duke it the fuck out. As Shadow begins to prepare to fight, Gerald and Maria say their words. Gerald apologizes to Shadow for being responsible for this basically, but assured that he's proud of how Shadow has handled it and Ben calls him his son. Maria begins to try to calm down Shadow again, worried that anger is consuming him again. But Shadow finally lets go of his destructive anger and now fights for Maria's wish to have everyone happy. He finally gets the chance to tell Maria that he will fight for her wish. Really heartwarming. Now it is time for Shadow and Black Doom to fight. They have both upgraded to the fullest power they have, so now it's to see who comes out on top. We get one of the best final bosses in Sonic ever, and as Shadow is getting ready to deal his last blow, Black Doom captured him and begins to coldly reveal to him that they're both one and the same and meant to be evil. But Shadow frees himself and claps back by exclaiming that he is himself and he chooses his own destiny. He denied and kills Black Doom. With the Black Arms defeated, Shadow gives the emerald to Rouge and assured that he trusts her and returns to Maria and Gerald. As they are both extremely proud of Shadow. As Maria collapses due to her illness, she quickly recovers, but Shadow sees some strange energy emitting from Gerald. Gerald deduced that with Black Doom defeated, the timeline is being fixed and restored, ultimately returning Gerald and Maria back to their own point in time. This upsets Shadow as he just got them back and he doesn't want to lose them again. One little arc with Shadow that was quietly handled was Shadow trying to save Maria and Gerald. It wasn't really shown in the cutscenes, but talking to them kinda hinted towards them. Shadow, going against his acceptance, wants to save them, so when he sees them, he freaks out and begins to mindlessly decide that he will stop Rouge and use Chaos Control to stop this moment in time forever to have Gerald and Maria in place. That's how desperate he is. Honestly really sad. But Maria tells him that with time being stopped forever would hinder Shadow's development and they wouldn't want to be stuck in one point in time anyways, so she tells him to go with his friends, since he never had any in the arc. Shadow's still freaking out, almost spoils what happens to them in the future, potentially almost damaging the timeline, but Maria stops him just in time, comforts him and gives an amazing speech about how no matter what happens, she and her love will always remain in his heart. They are close to fully fading away. Shadow finally accepting that this must happen, visibly shows how much this hurts him, so he fulfills Maria's new wish to enjoy his life with his new friends and goes off with Rouge. Maria and Gerald are satisfied with Shadow's future and are gone, for good. As Rouge is on her way to swap the emerald, Shadow runs past her, but as he does, one of his tears lands on her and she notices. Since Shadow isn't the type of person to cry at all, this surprises her, but she was aware of Maria and Gerald coming back, so she probably realizes Shadow said his goodbyes and has accepted it, so she smiled as she's happy for him and they both head off to the fight between Sonic and the Time Eater. Holy shit. Ed Media has told me that he's okay with sharing that he's a baby and said he cried at this moment, so haha to him. But honestly I kinda don't blame him because this was actually peak. I don't trust anyone who says Shadow Generations didn't have a good story because genuinely what the fuck are you talking about? The story covered Shadow's past and brought back important figures to his past such as Maria, Gerald, and Black Doom, so this is just a love letter to the 2000 era. And we see a great story of Shadow being confronted with his past and he keeps going and adapting to new poets that are connected to Black Doom that is the key to both of them powering up, and is determined to defeat him once and for all. And sets up his future as he contains Maria's new wish for him to have a happy life with the new people in his life and that no matter what, she will still remain in her heart. Yes, Shadow did accept Maria's death a while ago, but when he was confronted with his past, he was really tested and ultimately fully accepted everything no matter how much it hurt. This was peak Shadow and saved his character for him entirely. Yeah, this game takes place before Forces and Team Racing, but you know what, maybe he was having a bad week. Wait, actually Shadow wasn't grumpy really in Forces, just kinda rude, but still. This story alone, all the build up from the prologue to the ending of the game shows that the current writers know what to do with Shadow, and I'm honestly really excited to see how Shadow will be handled in future games. So how's that going?
This is the destiny I choose. Now, to end this!
The only content we have reviewed since this game including Shadow is Movie 3, some comics and Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. While the movies are not connected to the games, it was nice to see a new take on Shadow and it was really impressive. The comics have abandoned his rudeness and edginess and now have him as this stoic, calm, collected, and overall determined cool hero. He still has some edge but it's not try hard at all. He's not excessively rude to Sonic anymore, and seems to have a great connection with Rouge. I haven't read the comics, but based off a couple of panels I've seen on Twitter during some Shadow discussions, I'd say they're handling him well. While Sonic Racing Cross Worlds doesn't have a story mode, the Grand Prix does have meaningful rival interactions that have characters interacting with each other. Shadow's interactions are either a hit or a miss honestly. There are some interactions he has where he's just kinda rude for no reason like in team racing, but competitions bring out the worst in us honestly, but there are some good ones. His interactions with Rouge and Omega show that he does thinks of these guys as friends, but also acknowledges that they have some great strength as well. And he does have his nice moments like with Cream, telling her to give it her all. And sometimes when he's hit by a character like Amy or Cream, he does compliment them by admitting they had a nice shot. I will say though, he is horrible at trash talking. Jet and Wave are some of the greatest trash talkers in the series and the best Shadow had to offer was calling them pathetic. Shadow, you're goated, but you're horrible at trash talking. Goat is washed. Another highlight was his interaction with Sage. It was already established in the Sonic community that Sage and Shadow had lots of similarities, so seeing Sage ask Shadow if he considers Eggman family since he was made form Gerald, Shadow spat out some peaks saying he's moved on from the Eggman family and even tells Sage to choose her own destiny. Even in the animation for Racing Cross Worlds, we see he and Rouge have some cunning teamwork as opposed to the animation for the racing game literally emphasizing teamwork. We see he and Rouge both take on other races, and when Rouge loses her vehicle and about to fall into water, he even saves her. I gotta say, I think Shadow is in good hands. These little bits of him show that Shadow Generations really did mean something and they're using that as a base for how to write him now, and I gotta say, it's been pretty good. Way better than the 2010 era. Shadow really is in a good light now, and honestly, I'm so proud of it. He went from a laughingstock to such a cool character again, and I'm so happy with the way he's written now. And that's how Shadow Generations saved and ultimately redeemed the ultimate life form. Went from an embarrassing horribly written character to such a complex story about his character and now being cool again with his traits from his early games. And that's also it for me, Ed Media. I was definitely a better host for this video, but this is Ed Media's channel and I have enough humbleness to know I can't stay here forever. But hey, if you want to see me in more videos, let Ed Media know. Appreciate you watching, like and subscribe, and peace.